What is good, Spuds? This is Jesse Whitedeer, host of the Needless Potatoes podcast with me, Jesse Whitedeer. How y'all all doing out there? Happy Friday to everybody. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you love bugs out there. And if you're single on this holiday, that's okay too. We still love you. Maybe you're making plans. Maybe you already made plans. Maybe you're on your way to a date. Maybe you're on your way back. Maybe you just now sent that text to see if he, she, them will, respond. The anticipation is killing me. But wait no more, because our special guest today is Oklahoma City's own, Oklahoma City's sweetheart, Elecktra Stanislava. Hopefully I nailed that last name right, and if I didn't, I apologize. Elecktra is a really good friend of mine. Elecktra is an audio and tech engineer. Elecktra plays solo music. She also plays in the band Elecktra and the Annihilation Carousel. And Elecktra is just a fantastic person to know. And any kind of tech question you have, definitely hit her up. And so this entire conversation is just me and her talking about the ins and outs and everything Elecktra. And I really hope you enjoy it, because I really enjoyed recording it. So once again, Elecktra Stanislava, and I've been Jesse Whitedeer. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. This is your host, Jesse Whitedeer of the Needless Potatoes podcast. And we are here in Electra's house. Elecktra, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Good. All right.
I'm glad to see you.
I'm glad to be seen, I guess.
I'm glad that it's a podcast, so no one knows how fifthly my house is.
Oh, no, it reminds me a lot of my grandmother's house. That's not like an insult. I just like my granny. She had a lot of like just collection of stuff.
Knickknacks, bric-a-bracs.
Knickknacks, yeah. And then my mom's a lot like that. So I guess I am too, because like my cat will just sit in my box of books that I haven't like unloaded, or like, she'll just kind of get into all my stuff. And we had the gas turned on a few days ago.
Yay,
yeah. And I had to clean up my room, so that was kind of unfortunate for me, because now I don't know where anything is.
Oh my God, yes. My long-term awesome partner, Jarvix, is moving in slowly over the last 2 months, and I am realizing that 2 multi-instrumentalist musicians need 2 houses.
Right.
We have so much stuff.
I'm not even a musician, but like I just have so much stuff, because I guess I'm a lot like my mom, where I'll have something, but I'm like, I know there's something that I can use this tin can for.
Exactly.
Yeah, or like I can use this for something. So then I just put it like all in a collection of like a box or drawer or something, and then forget about it, and then need to clean it out. So
yeah, I've honestly thrown away so much stuff. Like, have I used this specific vegetable peeler? I have 3. Why do I need 3?
Well, you never know.
I know, right?
That's the thing that I think.
But I've been definitely downsizing. I have asked myself a few times, does this bring me joy, or can it fix a thing?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like that woman, like I forgot her name.
Kondo.
Yes,
whatever.
She says, "Does it spark joy?"
Yeah.
So, but she also says you should only keep up to 30 books on file, and then recycle them every year. So
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know. What do you want to talk about?
That's what everyone asks. That's the $1 billion question. So you are a musician as well as a writer, correct?
I mean, I'm a songwriter for sure.
Okay, because you do write poetry, right?
I write poetry. I write jokes, and I have been working on a novel that only one person has read for about, like, I don't know, maybe 6 years.
Okay.
I don't write on it very often. I'm very busy.
Right. Yeah. No. And in addition to being a musician, and you also do sound.
Yes, that's like my favorite. Well, I mean, it's my most lucrative job in the music industry.
Well, you're really good at it.
Yeah, I hear that a lot recently.
Okay.
It's been really weird. as a woman, I am always like, is this the compensation for sexism? um, because women sound engineers are like 5% of sound engineers are women globally. And I mean, that's a couple years old study, but I know Gabby runs sound, and then Glenna runs sound.
At specific venues or just in general?
Well, Glenna works for a church, and Gabby had been at the Civic Center, I think. And then I know that Sophia Masad runs sound, I think, mostly at churches. So I kind of, I've had some female interns under my tutelage a few times, and they don't very often stick with it.
Why do you think that is? Just because of like the environment that they go into, or is it just?
It can be first off, running sound in a live concert setting can be extremely stressful.
Oh yeah.
You have to feel like you've got a lot of experience under your belt. And still, even I've been doing it, I guess Britt McCabe taught me the basics at the Galileo's open mic in probably 2003 or so, in the Paseo area.
Is that the Brent McKay that does the Art of Manliness?
No.
Okay.
Britt McCabe, I believe he's a debate teacher. But,
okay, never mind.
But he taught me just kind of some basics then, and so I was able to run, like an acoustic guitar and a mic or so.
How old were you then?
God, I was young. If it was 2003, I'm talking about being 18.
Okay.
But I did start playing at Galileo's when I was like 15, so it could have been a little bit younger.
Because you started playing organ when you were what, 5 or 6?
4.
4. Okay.
I won my first composition award for the organ when I was 5.
That's exciting.
I peaked at 8. I'm 34, and I stopped winning awards for music around the age of 11 or 12. But I also stopped playing classical violin and cello and piano and organ, and went and said, I want a guitar. I want to play music, punk, rock, garage, grindcore inspired music.
Okay.
You don't really have awards for that, I guess.
You just want to play. I think that the word is you want to play what, metal, or you want to play rock music. Or, yeah. Maybe that's not what you said, but.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't know, sometime in my 20s, early 20s, I decided to really focus on learning music theory from more of a contemporary music than classical music, and then advance to jazz theory. I don't think that, you can get a master's degree in music theory, but I don't think that you can master music. You can maybe master an instrument, but it's always a practice.
Right. Well, I think music is like a lot of things, like writing or whatever it is that you're just kind of, you're not, it never really, you never master it like you said, but you kind of just shape it, and then you reshape it and shape it some more.
Yeah, what is the 10,000 hour rule?
Yeah, right.
So, and so, I've spent my entire life, 30 years, doing music in one way or another, but there's no end goal ultimately. I would love to make enough money playing music, but it is what it is. The music economy can be very hard. We have so many talented musicians in Oklahoma that you can go to 8 shows on a Friday and Saturday in Oklahoma City, and never see everything. So,
right. Well, and I think that's like really the kind, for me anyways, because I'm a fan of live music, is that to see all these like amazing bands or these very talented artists play within like a block or two from each other. because in Ada, unfortunately, we don't have that. We're kind of down to like I think one venue. The lot will pick back up in April.
Yeah, when the weather's nice.
Yeah, when the weather's nice. But we're only down to just Vintage 22, which I book at, but we're not taking bookings as of right now, unfortunately.
I love Vintage 22.
I do too. And Vintage is cool because like, and this was the same thing about Sessions, was that like you would see all your musician friends there, but you would also see people that support the music scene, or so you would see everybody. You can kind of talk, and it was almost like a reunion. Like you knew that at least a few musicians were going to be there.
Yes.
And do you think that's a lot like Oklahoma City, where you go bounce from show to show? Like you'll see one friend's band, and then you'll bounce to maybe another venue, and then you'll see that. Is it almost like a mini reunion every weekend?
I mean, yes. Sometimes everyone's bands that are friends with each other are all playing separate venues. Sometimes you're on the same lineup. And I mean, I've been gigging hard in the Oklahoma music scenes, like multiple scenes, for coming on almost 20 years now. And so I know a lot of people, probably more than a band that's only been around for a year. And
right.
I have been a booking manager for a now closed venue. I did have a residency show for a couple years at a pizza place that I just recently stopped doing as of this last week.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say where it is. I play there tomorrow on a different show.
Okay.
But yeah, at first it was just DIY and punk with my friend Kelsey. And then I ended up taking over it all by myself. And I was trying to decide, how can I format this differently to where the shows for me having to show up every Sunday are interesting, and they also will draw in a crowd. And so eventually I had settled on the first Sunday would be music, any kind of music. If I had a touring band, I would match the locals to that touring band as best as possible, whatever genre. And then the second Sunday would be comedy, because I love my comic homies. And then the third Sunday, I had also been doing music, but it kept ended up like someone would fall through or something. And so I asked my partner, Jarvix, if he wanted to do a 3-hour all improv looping pedal multi-instrumental session thing.
Yeah, the experimental
night. Yeah. And he said yes, and then it was very enjoyable. And I don't know, it was really getting a huge following of people. And I was going to work almost primarily with ACM at UCO, both faculty and students there. Almost everyone that was our guest feature had some dealing with ACM. And
can you say what ACM is for people?
What is it? Is it American?
I think it's American.
American is contemporary music or College of Music. I haven't ever thought of it.
Well, I mean, maybe not the acronym, but like what ACM actually is.
Well, it's a really cool college for school for music, and they have awesome studios. Scott Booker, who is well known for managing the Flaming Lips, pretty much founded it. They're well funded. The teachers and faculty there are all musicians that are working musicians, but they also are teaching musicians, and they have performance classes or majors. So you could guitar performance, vocal performance, but then they also have production and music business classes.
And I think that's you said that the production, they have a production class, and I think that's really important because being a sound engineer yourself and a musician, you know both sides very well, and especially being
Yes.
yes. Now, do you think making you a musician is harder to be a sound engineer, or is it easier for other people?
Um, I mean, I think that every person I know that is a sound engineer at least dabbles with playing music.
Hmm.
Like I said, most of us were playing for not as much money on gigs, and we love it, but we definitely feel more comfortable and are able to support ourselves financially by being sound engineers. So
Hmm.
a lot of us will be so busy with work that we don't really get to perform ourselves as much. And
Right.
very often I will be booking like a show, and I try to not book myself unless I feel that it's like a really good fit.
Hmm.
But I will stage manage while I'm a sound engineer, which is very normal, but
Right.
sometimes you need two people.
Hmm.
And then I will perform, but I'll also be running sound for myself. And that can be hard. But I also have done it so many times running an open mic that um, I know how to set my acoustic guitar levels to where I can mute it from the stage or
Hmm.
adjust it to my vocals. So I can normally eyeball it pretty easy. So I don't know. I know that one of my bestest friends and my favorite sound engineer, Jacob Straney, used to be really into the hardcore stuff, and I don't think I've ever seen him hold an instrument unless he was like helping a musician get plugged in.
Right. Well, I mean, but you almost need a good sound person. A good sound person is extremely important, as much as like a good stage manager or like a good booker or a good just as much as a good musician, because I think that it's almost those things of like people, and I know very little about sound, um, but here's my expert opinion on it. No, no, but like I recognize that like where my deficiency is like I know very little about it. So I'm not the type of person to go out and say like, oh well, you need to do this or that, or your levels are down, or you need to, you need this and this. Do
Mm.
you get a lot of that? Do you get a lot of people that
Oh,
musicians come over?
well, I mean, I feel that musicians that don't run sound will often say like they won't want to turn their amp levels down and let you take over, and they'll blow you away. And it's hard. A lot of people will say, and I wouldn't always say this, but sound engineers are assholes.
Well, you have to be
We're
though.
assertive, thank
Yeah.
you. But we also know the personalities that we're working with, and normally we know how to talk to them. So some people are extremely diva like and think that they are rock stars, and you need to tell them how to hold a mic and please don't cup it. Um, but others are there. There's a huge aspect of just they are nervous and they have stage fright, and they are kind of putting on a character to be on stage.
Mhm.
It is intimidating, and so you kind of have to sometimes reword it a few times, or go just turn down the amps all the way. And there are ways that you can ask people assertively that can sometimes be interpreted as very jerky ways, but very often we're just trying to make you sound the best for the audience.
Right. Well, and like I think that that is it's very important to be nice to the staff, nice to your bartenders, nice to your sound engineers, because almost always, uh, because like, whenever I book at like Vintage 22 or I book at a venue, somebody will ask me, they'll ask the bartenders almost always, or the sound engineer before they'll ask me, like, did this band tip well, or how were they? Like, or if like I book a show and I'm not there, I'll ask whoever's running sound for me, or I'll ask the bartenders, well, how were they? And if if they're very dismissive to the bartenders, or they like, to give you an example, there was a band that everyone was really hot on, and they brought a really good crowd, and and they were a cover band, so and obviously those bands are going to get more money, and people are going to come out for them and things like that. But everything was great, but they were really I think the drummer, or it might have been guitar player, he was very rude to like one of the bartenders.
Oh, God.
And because he said, "Hey, where did we set up?" She said, "Well, you'll set up inside, or you'll set up inside." And then he said, "Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna set up outside." Okay, well, why did you ask? And then they set up outside, and it started like sprinkling. So then they had to come back inside, and that delayed their show. So it's like, you might not think, well, not even that, but like the bartenders and the staff have been there. They've seen multiple bands come in, and they know what works and what doesn't to some degree. And some of them maybe not so much, but that's no reason to try to be dismissive or to try to downplay their involvement in that. Can you kind of give maybe, and you can be as vague or as specific as you like, but can you kind of give an example of that, of like a specific time where maybe a patron or somebody came over and was just very like rude to you, or rude to the staff so much where you're just like, we're just not going to do this?
I mean, I can think of a lot of instances.
Okay.
But there were several at the bar that I was the booking manager for. I had been lead sound engineer there before I became booking manager, and I had been working there I worked there for over 2 years during the height of the life of this bar. And we always wanted to, not the original owner, but we wanted to have kind of like the deli in Norman, Phil. They have early show and late show. They have music every night. And so that was kind of a goal, was we wanted to be supportive to musicians by making sure that we had people there, which was the hardest part at that place. But that we were always extremely hospitable to the performers within reason, because we were like, we didn't have a lot of budget for that kind of stuff. And I DIY'd like flyers, and the owner plastered the flyers everywhere, and I paid for a billboard and digital billboard and all this stuff just to try to make sure there was always a crowd. And I worked my ass off. At least 20 hours a week was spent in emails, sifting through emails, looking at EPKs, replying to emails. It took so much work. And then I would be on site running sound for as many shows as possible. And if a bartender was sick, I would run the bar. And there was a night that a bartender was sick, and I came in for coverage. So we had someone open up. I was like mid-shift, and then we had another bartender who was getting off her other shift, and she was going to come to be behind the bar for the show so I could run sound. And the band showed up for load-in over an hour before the load-in time had stated in the day of show details, which is great. But they came in, and they had never met me. They didn't know who I was. And immediately, they were like, I was like, "Hi, welcome to the Root," or whatever. And, was on bartender mode. And they're like, very few manners. And they were like, "Hey, we get free beers because we're the band. And I was like, okay, so these are the options you get. And it said, you get house choice beer or whatever. And they were like, no, that's not what what our contract said. And I was like, well, I mean, yes, you have an email with day of show details, but there's not like a legally binding signed on it contract. And they're like, how the fuck would you know? You're just the bartender. And I was like, okay, well, this is what you get. This is my bartender job.
Yeah.
And gave them the options, and they were really just jerky about it. And they were like, so when's the sound engineer going to be here? And I was like, well, you're an hour early for load-in, and you're second in line. I don't think you're backlining. And they said, well, that's not what we asked. We want to know when sound guy is getting here. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I am Elecktra. I am your booking manager, and I will be your sound engineer. And I'm the person that's been emailing you this whole time. Mm-hmm. And they still were jerks. I didn't book them again.
Well, so okay, so like, what was their beef though? Was I guess the beer, but like
they wanted more than what had been agreed on. That they were eager in text form to say. So
no, and fortunately and unfortunately, there has been a lot of that at Vintage, but there's been a few like people have come in and they've wanted. We agree on a price because they're at Vintage. It's a guarantee.
Yeah, you get the guarantee.
Yeah, so my job as the booker is to tell you like, okay, well you'll play this Friday on whatever, and then we'll load-ins at 8. You start by 9, you wrap up at 12, and here's what we can pay you. Mm-hmm. As very like cut and dry as I can. And sometimes you'll have people, well, what about drinks? Or they'll ask like, well, do we get this or do we get that? And, kind of like what you guys says, like within budget, yes or no. And almost always, I guess, because maybe I'm too accommodating, I'll say like, yeah, I'll buy you a beer. I'll buy you 3 drinks. Like, because I think that's just kind of courtesy. Well, so this band had came in and they weren't from like Oklahoma. Well, they were from Oklahoma, but like they weren't from like Oklahoma City, Norman area or Ada. I'll say that. And they came in, and I'd met them and stuff, and they were like, hey, so we're gonna drop our stuff off and we're gonna go like eat and then we'll come back. And this was like 7:30, I think. And I said, okay, well, like, loading still at 8. Like, my sound guy will be here at 8. And, but like, as, you get in, whatever, go eat, come back, load up your stuff, but we have to start at 9. They said, okay, cool. So some time goes by, whatever, and it's like 8:30. They get there, they show up, and then they're just like sitting around ordering drinks. And I'm like, hey, like, we gotta like, and I wasn't rude. I should have been rude. I said, hey, guys, we need to start getting your stuff in because it's like literally 30 minutes before you play. We need to make sure everything sounds good. And then, so my sound engineer, can help you. My sound engineer will help you, or my sound guy will help you. And, one of the female singer was like, well, okay, well, like, I gotta go find my or not my boyfriend, but like our drummer, because he's still back at the place that they ate at. Uh-huh. And I said, so, okay, like that's well, call him. So needless to say, he got there reluctantly. She called him on the phone, and I could kind of hear, she was only like 10 feet from me, but she's like, yeah, I guess this, the booker, he wants you here so we can set up and, for sound or whatever. She's like, but like, there's no one here, so I don't know why we need a sound check. Okay. Yeah. So
that's kind of the point of sound check too.
Yes, very
it's
much.
Earlier than the crowd gets there, hopefully.
Yes.
So the crowd gets that really streamlined,
great sound. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that they get there, they set up, and then it's like 9:00. They start. They play like 2 songs, and then they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go grab a drink." Well, you only played 2 songs. Like, we can't, like, come on now. So then they So they play or whatever, and then like, fortunately, the rest of the night went well, whatever. But then they on their way out, it was like, hey, on the way out, they had they had well, I had went somewhere. I had to go pick up one of my buddies, and I came back, and I got back after they had left. So when they left, they had left a bar tab that they didn't pay, and I messaged them. I said, hey guys, like, my bartender said you left a bar tab. They said, yeah, but like we thought that was covered. No, I said few drinks. So I said, hey, look, we'll do it like this. Since you're gone or whatever, you're going wherever you're going to go. Almost said the place. When you're going to go, wherever you're going to go, that's fine. But I don't think that we can work something out in the future. So I feel like your $60 bar tab is enough for me to pay out of my own pocket to make sure that like we just don't work together. For me to like wash my hands of this. So it was like $60, $70. So I paid that, whatever. No problem. And then, and they were just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, whatever. And then, not even a month or a half later, I guess they forgot that whole thing existed because they said, hey, we're promoting our EP. We'd love to come through your bar. And I was like,
no, please no.
Yeah. And I was like, how about we don't? And, yeah. So, unfortunately, you get stories like that, but can you kind of explain, like, as a booker and a sound engineer, what bands need to do to have the best relation to both? Or either?
Yeah. Well, and it's like one of the things I wanted to talk about if we're talking about music is Oklahoma City Rock and Roll Camp for Girls.
Yes, yeah. That was my next question.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I jumped the gun.
we can talk about it now.
But, we're teaching 8 to 17-year-olds this kind of stuff. And so we're trying to like not overwhelm them because we are more about teaching them their instruments and songwriting. Mm-hmm. But we like, a lot like people that are experienced, seasoned performers get questions from the other instructors and volunteers. Like all week we're talking about, hey, what's your favorite venue to play at? Hey, I have this question about like this, or like, hey, I haven't really got a great EPK. Will you help me, figure this out? And we talk all through the year.
And these are the other counselors, right?
Yeah, this is all of the other volunteers at Rock Camp. And
how can someone volunteer for that?
Oh, well, we'll open up volunteer applications in probably like late March because we'll be doing it in most likely the second week of July. I think that's the week that we do it.
This will come out before then.
Yeah. And so we have the applications up for like, I don't know, a month or two. And normally if you would go to Rock and Roll Camp for Girls, Oklahoma City on Facebook, or I think it's RCGOKC at .org, then you can, find out stuff and you can follow us. And most of the people that are involved that make it run are performers or have very busy jobs, and we take our vacation time and get, our kids long babysitter hours and stuff. And we don't really take vacation. We go to Rock Camp to be like awesome and get high fives until our hands feel like they're going to bleed. But that's stuff we talk about, and it's great because when you're at a concert, you can't ask, question. You're yelling over the music. You want to listen to the music because that's why you're there.
Right.
And so you don't always get to like ask, this kind of stuff. And I mean, I feel with the way the internet is now, if you look, you can find any information you want. But sometimes you don't even know enough to know that you don't know a thing. So we have, kind of like round table discussions. We have after camp hour dinners and stuff. And we all bond and become, family, sisters, and talk about this kind of stuff. And we'll help each other out throughout the year. And there's over 200 chapters of rock and roll camp for girls around the world.
Do you know how it was started?
In Portland, Oregon, they started just like ours is, with like a 1-week camp, and then they became a 2-week camp, and now they have a year-round music school, much like School of Rock here in Oklahoma City and Edmond. But that's co-ed, and it's all ages. They do kids and adults, but we're just geared towards inspiring girls and supporting female identified too, young women to find a love and passion for music. And even if they don't stick with their rock instrument, they will have an appreciation for it. And we teach a lot of the new volunteers are learning how to accept female support in a way that doesn't feel like there aren't backhanded compliments.
What do you mean by that? Like,
oh, well, I feel like it's not even a thing, but I know it still exists. But women are almost taught to be jealous of each other all the time.
Right, competition.
Over everything. And there's not that at rock camp. And it is making us woke. But
do you think that's just because of there were so few women, women identified sound engineers and musicians and stuff that they had to fight with each other?
I mean, sound engineers are few and far between, but I think that when you get into producers, that it's 2%. So there's 5% globally is sound engineers that are female identified. 2% of producers are female identified. And I mean, the non-binary, which I would say needs to be lumped in, even though they are not women,
right?
That's even less. But I feel like a lot of the women are more supportive of non-binary people because we understand that struggle. It's so hard. It's male-dominated. So when you're not male, it's harder. Right. There's more obstacles.
Well, it's very much like a boys club. It's very much, where you can, because I know from my own experiences, I'll go to shows and stuff, and I'll see female bands there, or I'll see female fronted bands, or you'll see, female fans in the crowd, or, or non-binary people, or, whomever it is. And you'll unfortunately hear some of the comments from other people, or you'll hear, or people will say like, "Yeah, that was a good chick band," or "That was but rather than "that was a good band."
Well, and it's like, I mean, I have not done vocal warm-ups at all, but I have a very good death metal growl when I am warmed up.
Yeah, right.
And I would not say that it is something that only men have to do. But you have to learn how to control your vocal cords. It's an instrument, so you have to learn that.
Yeah, with vocal exercises, things like that. Because I was listening to a podcast on the way up here where you were talking about that, like yoga and exercises for your hands and throat.
Oh yeah, I love. So I got diagnosed with carpal tunnel syndrome in both wrists at 17 when I was a session bassist. Ooh. And I was going through physical therapy. I mean, I had been hand sewing and embroidering, typing on computers, all the things that you normally do, and then playing piano, playing guitar, playing bass. But I did them a lot. And I was my hands were just going numb, and I was having a lot of pain and like stiffness. And I went to the doctor, and they stick these weird electrode needle things into your arms and make you do stuff. And they said, "Oh yeah, you've got really bad carpal tunnel in both." So I started doing physical therapy, and I had to wear full wrist braces that went up like my forearm, and I had to wear them 24/7. Unless I was doing exercises or I was playing an instrument, like to work backwards from all of the damage I had done. And so I found this really great yoga. I think it's just called Yoga for Musicians, and I believe it's on YouTube. And I can't remember the yoga instructor. I think she works with like this Canadian-based Namaste TV thing. But it's great, and it's just some simple stretches, and you can do them seated or standing, and I stretch, for maybe 5 minutes. If I start getting some numbness or pain, I do my stretches, and I show them to as many people as I can, because I'm like, work smarter, not harder, and it's self-care for yourself. And so it has made it to where I still sometimes have numbness and tingling if I'm typing at a computer for long hours. And I love spreadsheets and stuff. But if I just do my 5 minutes of stretches, it reduces the tension in my neck and shoulders and makes my hands feel better. And that's something that you wouldn't necessarily have, but it's something when I do like instruct even adults on guitar, I always teach them, or bass.
And that's something you teach at the kind of coming back. That's something you teach at the girls club, girls rock club.
So I am, I believe, the only full floating instructor. I wouldn't say that I am super proficient in drums anymore.
Okay.
But I teach guitar, bass, keyboard, piano, and the full drum kit. And then I also normally go in and do a death metal growl demonstration for all the vocal students. And I try to show them some physical stretches to help get higher notes and lower notes, which I also show to any of my trans friends that ever want to know. Because I can have a very deep voice if I want to.
It's spooky.
And I also I have a 4-octave range, so that is a big range for a vocalist. But I go lower. I'm more tenor. That's my comfort zone, is alto tenor. So I always talk about vocal care for your chords, and this is how there's so many different ways I can't do the pig squeal. That's one of my favorites, and I've been trying to learn how to do that.
It's funny because the first time I ever heard that was Entombment of the Machine by Job for a Cowboy.
Oh, God, I love Job for a Cowboy.
Yeah,
they're really heavy on the pig squeals.
Very much. So I heard that, and I was like, what the hell was that? And
well, it's like Despised Icon is one of my... They get some really good ones, and I guess I don't know if it's really deathcore, but it's definitely noise. Is agoraphobic nosebleed is a good one. And speaking of, I am a mom on top of all of this.
Right, yeah.
So I like working with kids because I've played music my whole life, and my son, his middle name is legally Corpse Grinder because I love death metal so much.
And it's very funny because there used to be a series with George Fisher where he shops at Target and stuff.
And
there's a small video on YouTube, and he's I think at a mall or something, or a Target, and it's just talking about, it's a 10-minute video about his love for clearance items.
I haven't seen this, and I need to see
this. Where he's talking about he goes to not Staples. Well, yeah, Staples or Target, Walmart, where he just buys clearance stuff, and he has so much just junk. And it's funny because he talks about doing art projects and stuff with his kids. And if you see a picture of him and his family, they very much look like the All-American Family.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so strange because he's also the vocalist to one of the greatest death metal bands ever, Cannibal Corpse.
Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, and he's also a huge WoW fan.
And Star Trek.
And Star Trek, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting. But
and I feel like, I don't know, punk people with their mohawks and their studs and everything, they can be intimidating. And same goes with metalheads, especially if you're into death metal or black metal, with the corpse paint. But when, like, even if you're not necessarily one of them, they tend to be really sweet.
Oh yeah, no, they're great. They're really nice.
Like, it's like, yeah, we listen to this kind of music, but that we're not evil. But
well, I think it's because you get so much out of it. You get that energy out.
yeah,
like
cathartic release.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's almost like a religious experience because like me and two of my buddies went to go see Between the Bear to Me and
oh god,
yeah,
oh Between the Bear to Me is on repeat on my shit all the time. So
and the great thing about that is it was up in Kansas, I think Wichita, Kansas, and they were playing. They played Colors all the way through, and it was amazing. But it was so cool because it was these people and they were just like thrashing and they were just kicking each other's butts and they were just slamming into each other and whenever can't think of his name.
I can never remember hardly any of any of my favorite bands' names. They just are entities that are the sure they're all individuals, but it's the sum of the parts. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So exactly. So the vocalist goes into his his breakdown and he does his growls and stuff, and then and everyone gets into it, and then he does his harmony parts, and then it's like it was almost like a religious experience where you have all that shared energy.
Yeah.
And the people that I met there were so great, and they were just so nice. And
yeah, well, it's like a good circle pit. I broke a toe, or almost broke a toe. It was messed up for quite a long time, and I've broken a couple toes in some metal pits before. But I went with like my best brosifer, David, who is in Giraffe Massacre and Plastic Smile, and my band that we haven't played in a while because of busy work mom life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Whitechapel came through, and Oceano, and
oh, nice.
God, I can't remember all of the bands that were, but Entheos was on there.
Oh, very cool.
And the lady that is their singer is like, I think she lived in Oklahoma for a little while. But I love her voice. And there's so much variety in death metal vocalists.
Very much.
But I was just like, damn, this is like one of the best lineups I think I've ever seen come through. I think it was at Diamond Ballroom. And I went with David, and I was back 10 feet away from the pit, and it had been going on, and we were into probably the third or fourth act out of like 6 or 7. All Seems Lost and Aberrant Construct were the locals on that too.
Oh, very cool.
And they are both really badass and super sweet guys. But all of a sudden the pit just enveloped me, and I somehow got almost to the center almost instantly, and I don't know what happened to my beer. Like, it was almost gone, thankfully. I don't know what happened to my beer, and I was trying to like elbow, and I had my clenched teeth smile, so I didn't take a punch and lose a tooth, because you got to protect yourself. And I was trying to get my way out, and then going with the flow, getting out. And then someone fell, and it was this tall guy, and I got pushed into him, and I think he was wearing steel-toed boots, but I know I kicked him with force, being forced into him. And I mean, everyone got pulled up. That's the cool thing about pits. When someone goes down, all your fam is there to get you back up. And they pushed us out, and I was like, oh my God, I need to get another beer. I think I broke another toe. And I was like, I'm not looking at it. And when I finally got home, several hours later, and I took my shoes and socks off, and I was like, ooh, this is already bruised, and I have like no toenail left. And I was like, okay, that might have been the last big pit for me.
Right. How long ago was that?
It was almost Christmas time, so 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it was a great show, but now I really, really stay further back than ever before. I have too many injuries that are, as you get older, you just gotta, learn to stay away. Well, it's like I don't know. I don't want to get a broken nose or anything.
Right, yeah, because you still have to work.
Yeah.
You still have to
I mean, I feel like my real job, I would probably get like some like, don't mess with Elecktra. Look at what she like, and I could just be like, you should have seen the other guy, is what I would just say over and over and over again. Yeah. So, yeah, I would probably get like whoa.
Yeah, people would probably leave you alone then, huh?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's no, I share that same sentiment. I'm not even 30. And very much whenever I go to shows, hardcore shows, metal shows, I try to stay away from like the pit and things like that.
Well,
like I got a good 40 minutes of like what I call rough time, like where I can be physical.
Yep.
And then after that, I'm good, because then like my back starts hurting or like my feet start hurting, and then I just need to sit down.
Yeah, well, it's like I will normally get a little warm up in like the first band, because it's normally not as rough. So I'll get a warm up in the first or second band, and then I'll normally, if it depends on the length, but I never get into the pit for the last band if I can avoid it, because it's always the most rowdy. But God, it is very energizing,
Oh yeah, no, it really well. And a few years ago, me and my oldest brother went to go see Slayer when they came through their last tour or whatever at the Zoo Amphitheater. And I went back there and I got the little bit of the mosh pit, but like that whole VIP section, I'm really kind of flexing that on everybody. But the VIP section was just like, the whole thing was like a big mosh pit, because the people are slamming into each other. But it's Slayer, so it's like,
yeah. Well, it's like you gotta save those. Like, this band is so epic. I wouldn't mind breaking something. Yeah, well, I will take the pain. I've got Epsom salt.
Yeah, very much. Yeah,
but it is fun, and I mean, like, punk pits are different, and I feel like hardcore really changed the way that a pit goes. There used to not be as much windmills. There wasn't as many donkey kicks. It was, mosh pits when I first was in one, it was, jumping up and down and into each other in a bouncy house kind of way.
Well, it's slam dancing, right?
Yeah, but now it's windmills and donkey kicks a lot. And I'm like, I don't want, that's normally in the center though.
Yeah, right. I share that same sentiment.
I like fell in love with this lady. I don't know who she was at the last one. She was probably like 4'3", and I had gotten on top of something that I could see into the center of the pit, and I was like, "Holy shit! Look at her! She's just swinging."
Yeah.
Like, marry me, lady.
It wasn't Emery, was it?
No, I would have noticed her.
No, because her band, Devil's Theory, yeah. They came and played a show for me at Sessions with the Mighty Crowbone.
Oh yeah.
So down there in Sessions and
wow, it's like, Emery is definitely a girl crush. I don't think she knows that, but if she's listening, she might.
I think and I'm going to interview them on Friday. So.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she's like the world's crush.
Yeah.
Because she, not only is she very attractive, but she is also a great person. She's very conscious of others.
Yeah, and I would never insult her with manic pixie dream girl. She is like not a manic pixie dream girl. She
absolutely not.
She is like what people wish that was.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree. Like she's great, and kind of transitioning into that. You said that there were other like punk bands and metal bands that you played in.
Oh yeah. I mean, my longest running band is called the Starbellys, and we were doing like folk punk with a twang. Like we wanted to do punk on acoustic guitars that was palatable, and we've been together since '98 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But before we became the Starbellys, it's me and my sibling Levi, and they live in Oregon, so we have reunion shows now. But at our heart, we write music a lot of times for harmonies for each other, even if we know we're not going to play together for years.
Right.
But so that's my longest running band, and we have had many incarnations of the Starbellys where we were very like punk, and then I don't know, we really like writing a lot of chords. So right. You can't always be punk that way. But before the Starbellys existed, I wanted to be who was the most accessible woman at the time for my age. The internet was dial-up then. It was Courtney Love. I wanted to be Courtney Love so fucking bad. Mm-hmm. I read like some books, autobiographies and biographies about her, and like all these shenanigans that she would just, I didn't want to get hardcore party and with the drugs and the drinking and all that stuff, but I really was like, that is someone I want to be like, because she just doesn't give a fuck. She is such a strong woman to, want to be similar to. Mm-hmm. And so we were in this like noise grindcore band that we had formed, and Levi plays the guitar, bass, and drums, and I play the guitar, bass, and drums. And we would just find whoever we could get to play, and we would just switch to whichever other instrument we could find someone else to play with, and we just do this. A lot of people will probably give me shit, but I still think that Hole is one of the forerunners of grindcore. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't like that.
That's fair.
But if you go to the Wikipedia page, it's in there.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, it is what it is, but I'm talking about like the first sessions and stuff.
What do you, is there a band like?
But we were called Flaming Shit.
Okay.
And that's what we were. We weren't good. We weren't very good. We knew it, but it was all about the energy and the rock star persona.
Well, you're just having fun.
Yeah. But Levi and I had so many bands that I started doing session stuff. So I would sit in on bass or doing vocals or guitar and stuff. And so I couldn't even name all of the bands that I've played with for short periods of time. Huh. But I know some of my more favorite ones were like Maxine and the Tarantulas, which was very like melodic punk. And there was another one, and Levi was in that one, and there's a lot.
Annihilation Carousel, right?
Oh, well, that's my still newish band. I mean, we've been around. We've had drummer change up, and David broke his collarbone. Kinky sex accident is the rumor I'm going on record for spreading. It's not what actually happened, but that's what I say happened. He wouldn't tell me.
I would tell everybody that rumor.
Yeah. All hot people.
Yeah, right.
But he broke his collarbone, and so right as I was like, okay, I have our day back. It was like, well, Nick, the drummer, can't make it this week, and then he broke his thing and broke his collarbone, and then he couldn't put any weight on it because it's where his strap goes, and he's just starting to get like, I think he's probably like 90% now, so we could start working on, getting back into the groove. But Elecktra and the Annihilation Carousel, because that's something I learned to do, is so you know who I am, and this is the backing band. We're doing like my singer-songwriter stuff, but we really when I'm solo, you don't always hear the nuances in time signatures, because it just sounds like it goes with the cadence of the melodies of the lyrics and stuff. So people don't notice that this is in 3/4 and then 4/4 and it switches back and forth, or this is solid, straight up, 4 on the floor, and then all of a sudden I'm going to throw this one in, and it's so you don't hear these change ups and stuff. But with working with them, because they are Giraffe Massacre and they're math rock, we definitely are taking more of a punk and mathcore approach to the singer-songwriter stuff. So it's interesting, and it's honestly my dream band. And we only played 4 shows, I think, because I was really picky. I didn't want to overextend ourselves, and it's also very hard for me to, for a long time I was a single mom, and I still, I'm the primary care provider for my 5.5-year-old, so it can be hard. He's in school and they have work, so it's not like we can practice in the middle of the day on a Wednesday and get rehearsal done. And I worked so much into late 2017 and 2018. There were months on end where I was I would see my son after school for 2 hours, and I would take him over to Grandpa's and not get to tuck him into bed because I had to go to work again. And so I was working 70 or 90 hours a week to make sure that my son could eat, to make sure that the lights were on, because I work at a nonprofit. Yeah. I shut down my business that was really good money, that I worked 8 days a week as a housekeeper, cleaning Edmondites' houses, and started nonprofit work because I love it, and took a third of the pay.
Right.
So I had to learn to step up to work even harder than I ever had, and I have the reputation for hardest working woman in the music industry in Oklahoma.
Well, you're doing sound, you're doing your music, you're doing your nonprofit job. So there's
I was booking, and I was bartending.
Yes, very much.
And if you divided music industry jobs up, there would be 4 jobs that I'm doing, because I get paid to stage manage at festivals, sound engineering, being a musician, and then was booking all the time. Mm-hmm. And I would book while my kid was at school remotely. I would take my laptop everywhere. I would be sending emails on my phone if I was taking a shit, just to try to get that 2 hours or 3 hours of free time with my kid after school before bedtime.
Right. There was no breakups or anything like that. You just, when he came home, you got to spend that time with him.
And I would put my phone on the charger in a totally different room and mute it, and, play Legos or read books, and really just try to enjoy my kid time. And it's because I understand, because of my background and my profession, how important consistency is. And that is especially with the sleeps. So he always goes to bed at pretty much 7:30. In the summer, last summer, because of school, he went to bed 6 times on my watch late for the whole summer. And he's in kindergarten now. And I let him stay up late last night until 8:30. It was great. But he is also cranky because he's used to the schedule. Right. But he needs it for his brain to develop, so he feels safe, because he knows that there's always solid things in his life, and getting bedtime stories and snuggle time in, all of that, and being a bottomless pit, it's so this 2019, the end of it from pretty much May on, I wasn't working 90 hours. I wasn't working 70 hours. I was working like 30 hours a week. And my son does go to his dad's on Friday night and Saturday night. And I know that his father loves him a lot. But I also think he gets a little too much screen time sometimes. But it's the weekend. He should get to live a little. And then he's over with my father, who is such a great grandfather. It's crazy. And he has my dad's girlfriend is like ultimate grandma. She's like the best. And then he has his paternal grandma too. And that's really like his support system. And he has 3 bedrooms at 3 houses, and he is a spoiled brat. But also I just like, I make a lot of experiences and memories with him, but I also am like, I want to play with this new Imaginext that just came out. I'm a kid at heart, I want to play this new video game. I mean, I'm on a PS3, but if I find one I like that's cheap, I'll get it. And so, I try to make experiences with him over just material junk. But also, I feel like growing up, my father also worked nonstop. He gave up his dream of being a musician to become a full-time worker at FedEx. He retired from there. He went from the neighborhood deliveries to doing the CDL big truck stuff. So he's always in town for the most part, or in state. But he did that. That was his full-time job. He did like dragster racing. Oh, and really he was so he was a gearhead, and he was one of the best mechanics around for a very long time. He dabbles, but he doesn't like people knowing. He knows how to do that. And then he was a machinist, and so he would do machining work and mechanic work on the weekends and sometimes at night after he'd get off. And then he would do his, all day job. And so he was always gone. And so like Saturday morning was always like, it was either like go to McDonald's or go get pizza, and like fast food was his like, here is my love language. It's fast food. And I buy you stuff. I give you money. That's why I work. I don't get to see you, but I know that you're happy because you are provided for. Right. And so it's passed on to me, and I'm always like, I'm loving you right because you have too many toys.
Yeah. But I mean, kind of speaking from experience, like because I grew up with 2 brothers and 2 sisters. So there's 5 of us in like a little house and stuff. So, you don't always get to watch TV, or you don't always get to, but like the things that I can remember from my parents is like going to Walmart with my mom, or like watching a movie with my dad, or, things like that. So it's those moments that like I remember as more so than like getting toys or whatever. Yeah. I didn't really care about that as much as a kid. I just kind of wanted to like watch Power Rangers as soon as I got off work, or not work. Yeah, when I got home from school, I just wanted to come home, watch Power Rangers.
Who was your favorite Power Ranger?
Man, I don't know. So it used to be the Green Ranger, and then he was the White Ranger. But I'm kind of like the Red Ranger, and of course I had a crush on Kimberly.
Oh, okay. And that, like, I always, when you play the games on the playground, like, that was always our go-to, was like, we're Power Rangers, make believe. And I hung out with, there was like Chris something. There were like 4 or 5 Christophers and Chris's. And there was like Jonathan. And Sam, and then me, and my dead name is also the nickname I went by was Chris. So they were like, the one girl that's Chris, and then all the guy Chris's, and so that was always me. I was always the Pink Ranger, and honestly, I think one of the Chris's had to always be the Yellow Ranger because there were too many of us for them to all be the boys, and like they were always making fun of him, and I was like, but you told him that he had to do it, you know?
Yeah, right.
And it ended up being the guy that always played the Red Ranger, I think, that ended up being gay. And I was always like, interesting turn of events.
Yeah, that's very telling.
Because he was so macho. I think he's just I mean, you can't like pigeonhole people that way.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
But I now even older, I'm like, oh no, that makes sense. He was overcompensating.
Right, yeah, a lot.
But and he was always like trying to hold girls' hands too, and I'm just like, okay, you know, that's cool. But yeah, I was like normally like Pink Ranger. But,
oh yeah, no, for sure.
But honestly, like because I was a girl, I had to play either the pink or the yellow. But I always liked the Black Ranger a lot. So
he was really cool too. He my grandmother, she bought me that Power Rangers movie on VHS.
Oh yeah.
And I watched that religiously, but I as much as I could because we only had one TV, and my older brothers and sisters would they'd let me watch Power Rangers, and then they would just like kick me off, or they would like hide the remote or like turn the TV, and then just kind of like physically remove me from the living room. And I'd have to like go and do something else.
Yeah, my younger brother Cody, who I've been getting to spend a lot of time with lately, this week.
All right.
He was really into Power Rangers too, and we both had twin bed Power Ranger sheets that like were matching, and like yeah, that was like one of our things that we bonded over. And so my son likes watching Power Rangers, but I don't know what incarnation, what world, what story arc we're on. It's very different than the Power Rangers we watched.
Yeah, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was the one that
yeah. And I don't know which one he is currently on, but I just bought him the Megazoid, you know, where all of the dino things come together. I bought him the Imaginext version of that, and I spent like more money than I think I should have. But he had asked for that for over 2 years. It was not a passing fancy. He wanted, you know, the Power Rangers thing, and so I mean it was almost $100. But I was like, if I get this, it goes. Imaginext are really cool, so like give me money, I'll take a sponsorship. But but you know, they're just cool little action figures, and we have quite a lot of the stuff in his toys because they all go together. So I was like, if I get this, it'll go with his other toys, and then I can sneak away a bunch of other ones because he's going to be occupied with these.
Well, just that one Megazord.
Yeah, and that has been his toy box is half empty now, and he doesn't even notice.
Right, he just noticed that one. Very cool. Well, just kind of wrapping up here. Is there like a piece of advice, or maybe a source that you would direct all inspiring musicians, comedians to? Is there something like that helped you when you were coming up that you kind of would want to pass on?
I mean, there's so many things, but with Jarvix, he runs Make Oklahoma Weirder, which is a website, makeoklahomaweirder.com. I help as much as possible. And we put out, it's the last Wednesday of every month, and we're hoping to be at ACM at UCO this January. But if you follow us on Make Oklahoma Weirder or follow my band page Elecktra with a CK, you'll see it. But Music Industry Networking Night is exactly what it sounds like. It's about asking questions from people.
And that's on Thursdays, right?
Last Wednesday of every month.
What venue is that at?
We hop around now.
Okay.
It used to be at my former venue. We've been at Vices El Reno's. Lovely, lovely place. If you want to talk about great musical supporting venues. We've been at the Paramount Room a few times. We've been at Angry Scotsman Brewing. We're trying we would have to move off of Wednesdays, but we want to go down to Resonator because we want all ages places.
Right.
And we're thinking about a couple other Norman bars. We haven't talked to Red Brick, but it's on our list of like in the future. Red Brick, Bison Witches, maybe Blue Bonnet before they have a show. The Deli always has music, so we'd have to figure out when the quietest time would be, because it's about talking, making connections, and you can ask a sound engineer questions because I'm there. There's booking managers. Sometimes we have performance artists that are like dancers, and it's not just rock music. It's not just hip hop or rap or classical music or indie. Everyone gets there, and you never really know who's going to be there. And every time it's lovely to see people from so many different scenes and different genres
coming together
and talking about stuff, because we can learn so much about each other's, like what doesn't work and what does work. And it's really cool. But I guess if I was going to say the first thing I would say to someone that's trying to come up would be
be nice to the sound person.
Be nice to the sound person. Look for every show you possibly can and try a genre and a scene out from everywhere. And try to make friends with other musicians, because we're all really cool.
Yeah, make those connections.
Yeah, connections are great because they expand everything. And the more people you know, the more information you can get.
Absolutely. All right. And you're on Instagram, Facebook as well?
Yes. On Facebook, I think it's at Electra's Music. And on Instagram, I'm at Elecktra Eclectic. And that's always a CK everywhere. And then I'm also on Twitter as Elecktra5000. My second point of advice would be, if you're going to be a performer, always have the same handle on absolutely everything and make it easy to spell if possible, because you're not going to remember anything I just said.
Hey, kitty.
And
your cat makes an appearance at the end.
Oh, meow meow. She's quiet.
And you can follow this podcast on the Needless Potatoes Podcast on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. We're not on Twitter because I don't have a personal Twitter, just because I don't have that much time to do all that stuff. Yeah. So I commend you for doing it, though.
I'll tweet about this.
Yeah,
and link it
cool.
to Spotify.
Hell yeah. And but yeah, and then where you can listen to us on Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Apple Music, just because for me, like, I'm not going to do that. I just don't want to support Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, so fuck them. But I mean, honestly. Yep. But and then we're on YouTube, and to answer your question, people who message me, yes, all of this is free, and yes, you can find it on the regular Spotify and on YouTube. So check us out, and thanks again, Elecktra, for letting me have me in your home.
Thank you, Jesse. I love you. You're great.
I love you too. It's awesome.